Last week I was at a mastermind in Charleston, South Carolina, and I went for dinner with six nine-figure online business owners who have each individually sold over $100 million of online coaching and consulting and info products. And I wasn't meant to be at that table. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you the lessons that I learned from having dinner with six nine-figure entrepreneurs and what the lessons were that I extracted from each one of them, and how I'm going to kind of use that and take that to apply it into my own life and business to take my own company to that level as well. So if you don't already know me, my name is Jeremy Pogue. I help online coaches scale with ads and appointment setters and help them build the foundations and the funnels to get to seven figures and above, because that is what I have been able to do and helped a whole bunch of people do the same thing. So let's get cracking. So I flew into Charleston and we went on a yacht. There was about 50 of us at this mastermind event. It was on client acquisition and how they are turning $300 into $30,000, getting a 100x ROAS on their advertising right now. So although we learned extremely in-depth and very tactical strategies on how to actually apply that funnel, we workshopped it and actually built that out as well. My main takeaways were more intangible, and I'll get into each one of those right now. So basically how it went down is we got off the boat and we all kind of started walking. It was kind of getting late. We all started walking back to our hotels. And so everyone kind of peeled off in a bit of a different direction. And I was talking to one guy who has sold hundreds of millions of dollars on stage for somebody that we all know and have probably learned from. I won't mention any names because I want to respect the relationships that I built with them, and I don't want to use their names for anything like that. It just feels kind of weird. But him and I were chatting, and it's interesting too, because now that he's on his own, he was working for somebody else. He's on his own now, and he was kind of like dealing with some of the similar like dilemmas that I've been going through over the last like 6 months, which is, do I want to optimize for a very small team, a lean operation, and just kind of profit like 1 to 150K a month and just kind of optimize for like profit and lifestyle? Or do I want to actually go big, push 8 figures, and then eventually build like 9-figure net worth over the next 10 to 20 years? And I have been like really just, for some reason, this was keeping me stuck. But it was really interesting to have that conversation with this guy, and he was feeling the exact same way. Because at scale, when you get past like a couple hundred K a month, then things start to like get a little bit more complicated. You start to add a lot of bloat to your business and hire team members and just have a ton of clients and a lot to manage, right? And without proper systems, it's nearly impossible to actually keep your head above water. And to hear him say like, and he brought it up first too, where he was kind of like toying with that idea of like going big or just kind of staying lean. And we both came to the exact same conclusion that we have to go big because we're being selfish if we don't. But not only that, for me especially, and for him, he said this as well, that it's not about the outcome. It's not about scaling to 8 figures, doing 10 million a year, right? Or like $1 million a month. It's not about that at all. What it's about is the man, the entrepreneur, and the leader, or the woman, but man in my case, obviously, that it forces you to become in order to get that. It's about the level of personal development, experience, and expertise required to build a company to that level. Right? Will I be coaching for the rest of my life? I don't know. However, business like principles are universal. And so whatever principles and lessons I learn from this model in this company, they're going to be universally applicable to any other business that I start, right? Tactically, it's going to look a little bit different, but on a principle level, the strategies will be the same, right? And we were walking and talking because I was heading back in the direction of mine, and so were they. And we were like very close to each other, a couple blocks away. And somehow we just ended up We all just went into an Airbnb, right? The guy that put on the event, we just went into his Airbnb, and there were 7 of us there. And we're just chilling there for a bit, for like probably 30, 45 minutes. And then we decided to go out for dinner. But before we left for dinner, I kind of just asked everybody. I was like, yeah, you guys have been doing this for a little bit longer than I have, a little bit. And I'm like, things are going well. They're going really smooth. I'm like, do you guys ever ask yourself, like, how do I just not fuck this up? And every single one of them looked at me. They're like, all of the time. And then the guy that put on the event, he was like, Jeremy, how old are you? I'm like, 26. He's like, that's exactly why you feel that way. And what he said was, the longer you're in business, the more hurdles you jump over, the more challenges you face and overcome, the more experience you're going to have and competence in solving problems, which will then lead to more confidence to then not worry about that and get better at figuring it the fuck out when shit hits the fan, for lack of better words, right? So what he told me there was, you're always going to have that anxiety and those thoughts and like those worries, but along the way, you just get better at navigating those and solving problems, so then you don't let that hold you back. And one thing that was kind of blocking me mentally, just kind of pulling back the curtain here for you, on like scaling 8 figures, is in my mind, I'm like, it's going to create a lot of bloat, complexity, and kind of like lower margins, and just a lot of chaos, right? In my mind, that's the belief that I had been holding about getting to 8 figures. So then if you have that kind of belief, then you're not going to get there, because why would you want to get there if it's very difficult and not very fun? But then it doesn't have to be true, right? There's a right and a wrong way to do it. And basically, like, if I just stay where I'm at, then like, I don't just stay where I'm at, because then you don't evolve, you don't adapt. And who's going to want to learn from somebody who's just kind of settling, right? Because then there's no power in that proximity, because you're not growing and developing yourself. You're just kind of staying stagnant, so to say. And so the one guy that I was walking with, the main takeaway there was, swing for the fences and go as big as you can, not for the outcome and the money, but for who it forces you to become along the way. The next one was, no matter what happens, you're going to develop and you're going to learn how to solve problems, so that when any problem comes up, you will get past it. And I think a lot of the time what we fear, and fear holds us back, and a lot of the times what we fear is made up stories in our heads about potential things that could but possibly happen to us. And when they do, like, we're all still surviving, right? We're all still here. So when they do, we make it through. But for some reason, it prevents us from taking action. And the more competence we develop, the more confidence we develop internally as well. And then I was talking to another guy. He used to run the biggest sales training company online. We all know the name and everything like that too. He recently sold his equity in that, and they're doing multi 8 figures, and they've done well over 9. But nonetheless, I was asking him, like, if you were in my shoes right now, what would you do to get to $1 million a month? And he's like, well, why do you want to get there? It's like, why do you even want that in the first place? And I was like, it's a good question, right? I'm like, I want to become the person worthy of doing that. I want to become so internally mastered that my external world is as well, and that follows suit, right? And I want to learn the lessons and keep pushing myself and reaching my true potential, because I know I can. And he's like, okay, good answer. He's like, do you want $1 million revenue? Like, top line, gross profit, Net profit? I was like, what is it? And he's like, I have a friend who does $100 million a year, but he spends $108 million a year to make that. He's like, revenue doesn't mean shit, right? Cash collected doesn't mean anything. What matters is how much profit you're pulling out of that and reinvesting each year. And that one really hit because we all want those flashy, fancy screenshots, and it's just a vanity metric. It's just purely for ego, right? It's just a dick measuring contest at the end of the day. And a lot of times people hit it once and they don't hit it again, or it's very sporadic. And then you hit it and you're like, okay, well, I did it. Now what? Right? And then you kind of lose the vision because you tied it to an outcome that is just doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. And when you feel like you've arrived at the destination, then like there's no point in continuing. Or at least it makes it very difficult to, right? And so the lesson I took from that is optimize for what actually matters. So I asked him on a very tactical level, I'm like, okay, so right now with my team, I'm like, our goal is like, our short-term goal is like $500K a month. And that's just top line revenue, like cash, right? Not revenue contracted, cash collected. That's what actually matters. But then I'm like, so on a tactical level, how can I shift that prioritization and vision with my team moving forward? Because like, how can I incentivize them to optimize for profitability? He's like, well, that's easy. Just give them 3 targets, right? Top line, gross, and net. And that's what the whole team has to optimize for. Because when you give everybody constraints, then it forces them to step up to their potential within those given constraints. And as a result, the whole team gets better, more productive, and more efficient, and stronger. It stays leaner, and you don't have as much bloat because everybody is operating at full speed instead of half, right? And then it also forces you to pay market value or better for talent instead of overpaying like crazy, which is very common to do in this space. And so that was another very important lesson, right? And all in all, like I said at the start of the video, we learned a lot of very tactical, strategic things that we could apply to build out a new funnel, an ecosystem that will just print a disgusting amount of cash, which I'm going to apply. However, I know the thing that was the most valuable and impactful was not just that, but it was the intangible stuff that I just mentioned and seeing how each one of these guys carried themselves. You can feel their conviction in their energy just being around them. You can hear it in their voice. You can see it in their eyes. They're like battle scarred because they've gone through so much personal development over the last like 10 to 20 years that you can sense and you can tell that they're just masters of themselves. And then their external world is a reflection of that. And I truly believe that he who prioritizes the long term will always come out on top. And with that too, it was another very powerful reminder to expand your time horizon. So if you're anything like me, you probably want things, you want big things, and you want it now, right? You want to hit your goals yesterday. And especially with like social media, you see a whole bunch of stuff. You see all those fake gurus with the rollies and the Lambos, right? Stay away from those guys. And you want all that stuff now, right? But that leads to like short-term thinking because that stuff doesn't actually matter. And one thing that I actually realized sitting around the table is like none of them had a nice watch on. They all just had like Apple Watches or something. Because that doesn't matter. They don't value themselves with the material things. They value themselves with the internal things, the immaterial things. And you can see that, you can feel it, right? You don't even have to talk to them to know that. And that's just because of how much personal development they've gone through, how much experience they have doing the thing, and how many skills they've had to acquire and master along the way to get to where they're at, where they're invited to sit at that table, right? Me being there was probably a mistake on paper. But in the grand scheme of things, I think that was the catalyst that's going to just explode things from here. And it was definitely not an accident, I'll tell you that. It was definitely not a coincidence. It was meant to happen. But my main takeaway from here is don't stop doing what's gotten you to where you're at. Continue to master the fundamentals and the basics. Master yourself, learn the skills that you need to. Master them by getting reps, right? One of them said, he's like, I did 2 seminars a day for 10 years. Most people are afraid to test one new ad every week. Get your, like, you know, like when you really put things into perspective, it's easy to coast and get comfortable. But when you pay for proximity to people that operate at a different level, you see it. It lights a fire under your ass. And it's such a good wake-up call because you don't get that anywhere else. You don't see that anywhere else, right? And especially like we all run online businesses. So a lot of the times we don't actually hang out with people in person that have the level of standards and mastery that these kind of guys do, or that the people that we want to get to, like the level that we want to get to, we don't know anybody there. Like that's done it. So we don't see what's required of us on a personal level to get there, right? Because you can see online, you can watch as many videos as you want, you can look at people's Instagrams, but it's hardly scratching the surface. You don't actually see that until you sit down with them, you have dinners with them, lunches with them, conversations with them, where it just hits you like internally, like rattles your bones, where you're like, oh, I understand now. And one of the things that I've kind of been putting off is going to like in-person events, right? Travel, yeah, it can take a whole day. For me, I live in a small town in Canada. So it took me like 12 hours and like 3 different flights to get there and to get back, right? Each way. And so it's inconvenient for sure. But to me, that cost is worth it any day of the week. And that proximity, even online, you can still get some degree of that online. And one of my other coaches, who's worth multi 9 figures, he, like, the lessons and the insights that I've gotten just from like interacting with him online has been extremely powerful too. We do a lot of stuff in person as well, but before that, when it was pretty much just all online, you could still get that, right? And I really do think that proximity to people who are where you want to be is the single most important and powerful investment you could ever make. This trip cost me a lot, right? If you think about it that way. But the way I think about it is this trip is going to make me so much money. It's going to help me become the man that I know I can be and should be, and that I was meant to be. So I'm still kind of processing everything because it's only been a couple days since being home. But these were some of the most pressing things kind of top of mind that I just really want to share with you, because I really hope that this impacts you as much as it did to me, and really just encourages you to get out there, get to these events, whoever you look up to and learn from, be in the room with them. Get as close to them as possible. Because I'll tell you right now, you're not one little thing away from hitting your goals. You're a lot of things away, but most of the time it starts here. All of the time it starts here, right? It's internal. The tactics, the tangible things, that's actually the easy part. That's actually the easy part. What's not is reading all of these books, taking these courses, going to those events, and learning from people who are well past where you want to get to. And I think it's the most powerful thing you can do. So an action step for me is actually carving out and scheduling time every single day to learn something new, master a skill, and work on myself, because it's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day that you kind of just put it off to tomorrow. And we all know how that goes, right? And you could just see, I could just see the degree of mastery that each one of those guys had. And it just lit something inside of me, right? It's not about the flashy things. It's not about the material things. It's about that, right? Most people, like, if you're watching this video, you probably care about status to some degree. I know I do, right? Subconsciously or something, like, I don't know, but I've done a lot of like introspection to kind of dig into that. And status is important. I think most of the time, most of the things that we do are to acquire a higher level of status, right? Because usually status, if you're a man, it earns you respect from other men and admiration and respect from women, right? Increasing the value of the mate that you can get and everything else, right? We can save that for another time, but status is important. And most people think, like, I think if you're kind of at the 6 or like early 7-figure level, kind of like where I'm at right now, and this is kind of a big perspective shift that I just had this week, but you think status comes from having the things, right? Comes from the Rolex or driving a Lambo, but it doesn't at all. On the surface, to the people that don't actually matter, yeah, those things do, sure, right, on a very surface level. But I don't want to be surface level. I want to be deep. I want to be very intimate with the people that I associate myself with. And I want to be invited to more tables like that for dinner. And I want to be the one that people go to dinners like that to be around, that people come to see, to learn from, to soak in that energy, those standards. And in order to do that, each one of these guys, like I said, they weren't wearing any watches. I don't think they have like any insane cars or anything like that, because that's not where they gain their status. That's not how they value themselves. They value themselves with what's up here and in here. And you could tell that. You could smell it from a mile away. Like I said, you could see it in their eyes. You could hear it in their voice. You could feel it in their energy. And to me, that's real status. That's real value. Because that comes from doing the hard things, and it's impossible to shortcut that. The flashy things are good for the 99% of people. But that's not what I care about. Because those conversations with those people don't stimulate my mind. They don't excite me anymore, right? Used to. Right? I used to love the stupid conversations with anybody. And I'm not trying to be arrogant here. But if you've done some degree of personal development, you probably understand what I'm referring to, right? You're going to outgrow some people. That's okay. Right? But if you want to be part of the 1% or the 0.1%, then you have to go through 99 or 99.9% of people, right? I want to have dinners with those people. I want to have dinners with the top, because I want to be the top. But in order to get there, I have to first become worthy of that, which sucks. It's not fun. It's boring. It's hard. It takes a long time. But what else am I going to do? What else are we going to do? What else are we here to do? So, that said, I'm going to wrap it up here. So, a very impactful week. And I hope that I was able to share some powerful lessons. I'd love to hear your insights and takeaways from the video down below in the comments as well. If you want to hear more videos like this, kind of reflecting the lessons and the insights that I'm kind of learning along the way. And I can make more videos like this too. And I think that we just need to expand our time horizon, focus internally, and all the other stuff will come to fruition. So that's it for the video. Appreciate you guys a ton. All your support means the world to me. And I'll keep making as good videos as I can to hopefully help somebody else out there who is trying to make a big impact, trying to change the world. So that said, I'll see you in the next one.